Thinking. Cool. It's so funny. We always start, and then we immediately start. We go like, "Hey, everyone! It's the community stand," and then I realize that no one's here yet. So this is the thing that's so funny about the community stand-up. We've never. Oh wow! And where'd they go? No one's ever been here at the beginning,
including our on-site guests.
Where did you go? Where did you go? That is hilarious. Okay, so this is good though, because they're gone. So that means Chrome has crashed or something. This is good. Hello, 11 people who showed up, 16 people.
And also many viewers on YouTube.
We had people here, and now they're gone. Rebooting, something weird happened. Hang on a second.
Well, Joshua is here.
Well, that's okay. We appreciate you, Joshua. So this is so fun. Little tech support here. I'm gonna call Eilon. He's one of the lead devs. He probably needs help rebooting his computer. just take a second.
Oh, joined.
Hi, is everything okay with your computer? He hung up on me.
So, okay, it looks like
you.
Oh, there you are. Hey, what happened?
No idea.
No idea.
Laptop.
Stage fright.
How do you crash every time? Okay, zoom in, you all. Zoom in. No lower third. That's so funny. We were just commenting before you disappeared that no one's ever been here at the beginning. You know how we start the thing and we go, "Hey, everyone, welcome," but at that point, no one is here yet. So I realized we should start and wait because
the majority of our views are YouTube viewers after the fact, right?
But I care more. I care more about the live people.
All right.
About the 50 people who are right here, right now with us. Cool. Okay, so here's the story, everybody. We've got John Galloway. Wave, John. Hello. And now Damien is in the heat of battle right now. He's off in a .NET architecture meeting. And it looks like we've got Maria and Eilon on a low bandwidth situation. You had to reboot your machine there, and something went bad, and your video sucks right now.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of.
Now it's gone completely. Are you plugged into the wall, or what? What's going on over there?
We're not plugged in.
No, we're off the wireless.
We're not tech people, Scott.
I think you are, in fact, bad people. That's okay. So, this is Damien always texts me like, you know, I've got this meeting. Can you take care of it or whatever? So we've got Eilon, who has kindly joined us. Eilon, can you introduce yourself to the people because you don't have a Twitter?
Yeah, hi, Internet and fans of Scott Hanselman and John Galloway. I'm Eilon Lipton. I'm the development manager for ASP.NET and Entity Framework, and I'm excited to be here today.
That was good. I almost believed that. That was really good.
Scott called me up literally, I think, 30 minutes ago and said, "Hey, I need you to do this thing," and I said, "I don't know."
All right, that's good. So you're here, excited to be here. That's fantastic. Cool. And Maria, you flew in from New York yesterday or today?
No, morning. This morning. I came right here.
Wow, the internet is so bad. Would you mind plugging into the actual internet there, and not the fake wireless internet, Eilon? Adapter for
No.
Galloway, are you seeing this? Are you saying the same?
I'm seeing the same thing.
You're seeing the same stunning internet quality that we see?
I am. Yep.
Yeah. This
you
is
know, while
kind
they're
of,
doing that, I just want to point out, Eilon has been on the ASP.NET team like forever. Worked on like the original MVC implementation and all that. And Maria is like brand new. So we have the old and the new.
Are you saying that Eilon is old? Is what I heard.
John. I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying. Oh gosh.
I think the thing that's more important that Eilon did was he invented the update panel.
Oh, that's true. That's
so
true.
we can all take credit for that. Did you do you have a patent for that or what?
I think there might be one. We'd have to look up on like the USPTO website.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully the internet will get better there. So Maria, you came in from New York, and this is your first day on my team, but you've been at Microsoft for a little while.
Yeah, I've been in Microsoft for 3 years and 6 months, 3.5 years, right out of college.
Okay.
I was an evangelist in New York.
Yeah, and you do a lot of hackathons, you do maker fairs, and you talk to a lot of universities and colleges.
Yeah, my predominant audience is universities, startups. So startups before they make big money. That's the startups I work with.
I like that. Startup
I
before you make
support.
big money. Like even so far before they've had the startup idea, they could be that soon, that early in the startup process when they're just in college. So Eilon, are you plugged into the wire? Because I'm finding that it is so bad that it's almost impossible to have a conversation with you.
Let me find somebody with a cable.
We're going to look for an adapter to
Okay.
plug
So
right
while you're doing that, we're going to have John Galloway do the community links. So you can go ahead and take your time and do that, and we will switch over to John.
Excellent. Okay. Well, actually, let me start with this one here. So earlier, I think it was last week or previous one, we did we kind of talked about some different things to troubleshoot if your Visual Studio is running slowly for you, and so this was just kind of a discussion during our community stand-up, and so James Chambers actually wrote that up. So he just took some time to document all the different things that we went through during that call. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Interesting. Scroll up a little bit there. So this is great. So he talks about SSDs and RAM disks, but this is the part that's so significant there. He says, figure out what is causing your grief, right? And this one here is a really interesting one. If you're compiling, you're thrashing to disk, sometimes you want to think about possibly excluding devenv, the process for Visual Studio, from antivirus, because it's just there's so much disk access going on, the thing gets beaten up.
Yep. So I thought that was cool. It was just kind of a little discussion that happened, and he took the time to document it. So
that's lovely that he did that. I like that.
So, Mads Christensen comes out with a new extension for Visual Studio. Actually, probably just did 3 while the call has started, but this is one he did that I thought is interesting. This is a client-side library installer, so this is something I've been playing with.
Okay.
So just another Mads extension. This one's pretty cool. This is from Steve Lasker, and so I was talking to him, and I was like, wow, I should feature this on the site. So he's working with Docker tools for Visual Studio. And he's looking at ASP.NET, and so here he has a post on developing from the beginning using Docker. So what's interesting about this, there's a lot of text here, but what he's talking about is developing, like not just seeing Docker as at the end of after you've completed development, now you're going to publish using Docker, but he's actually talking about developing from the beginning using Docker. So I thought that was nice how he's.
It's also nice to see it's a commitment to saying we're going to make this thing work. It's going to work on Linux and Windows container scenarios. So that's cool.
Yep. So this is SaaSkit. I think this was, oh gosh, I forget the name here. Ben Foster. Yep. So he's talking about this is something he's been building out. I featured other posts of his in the past, but here he's talking about this is a 1.1 alpha of his SaaSkit, which is for building SaaS applications using ASP.NET Core.
Nice.
Mark Brind, I feature his stuff very regularly. So here he's looking at encryption and decryption in ASP.NET Core.
Who is this?
Mark Brind. So he's
Mike or Mark?
Mike Brind. Yep. Okay. Mike Brind. Yep. So he's done a ton of posts over the years on ASP.NET web pages, and then recently he's been looking at ASP.NET Core. So, cool stuff.
Okay.
This one I just saw tweeted recently. It was something I hadn't looked at before, and Tuberk Ugerlu pointed to it. This is a proxy library for ASP.NET 5. So it's ASP.NET/proxy. So just something I thought was neat, and it was a community link that was pointed out. I featured this last week, the Ben Adams thing about the work with Kestrel, and so Tech Empower kind of featured that and talked more about it. So that was neat, just seeing Tech Empower. We're using the Tech Empower benchmarks, and so they were saying this is great. They're really excited to have us, as part of the party. So James Chambers, I already just talked about one of his posts earlier. He's part of this ASP.NET Monsters. ASP.NET Monsters, they had a episode last week on loading settings from a database in ASP.NET Core. So, nice 15-minute post here, or a video. Okay. Localization extension. So this is from Hisham, and he's talking about localization extensibility in ASP.NET Core. So ASP.NET Core has great extensibility, but also really cool that it's that you can extend it yourself. So nice article there.
One of the things that I like about the ones that you're picking here too is that we talk a lot about open source and whether or not there's going to be a big open source project or support for open source. But these are little utility libraries. You know, this is what you see in the Node community. Like it's little pieces of middleware that just make life better, make life happier, helper functions and things like that. It's really cool that we're starting to see those.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, I mean, going back to the thing you were talking about a long time ago about the Lego pieces, right? And these are at a small enough level where people can jump in and say, here's a small little thing I built. Here's a way to extend this API, etc. So good stuff. So here's a 3-part series on ASP.NET Core with Angular. So we kind of did a three-step series. So this is from Fayaz and just nice kind of series. I always like to see a series and see people kind of take something pretty deep that way. So this is from Arvind, and he's talking about improving performance of ASP.NET MVC. To be clear, this is not ASP.NET Core. This is ASP.NET MVC existing, but it's nice to see just kind of digging into some of the things he recommends on improving performance.
Nice.
Eric Anderson, frequent guest here, or frequent, I feature him regularly, so he's looking here at emails using Mailgun and ASP.NET Core. So there's that. And then finally, I thought this was pretty cool. This is Norm Johansson, and he's talking about exploring ASP.NET Core deployment on Amazon Web Services. So kinda,
interesting.
Yeah, so he's
using the AWS code deploy stuff to do the automatic deployment. So he's making Amazon instances, EC2s, and, and putting Core on it. That's fantastic.
Yep. And so this is part 1 of the series, and he's building out a series there. So it's great to see ASP.NET everywhere. So so there's that. That's it for me.
That's cool. One thing that I found that I thought was kind of slick, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. I just found this today. Let me know when you can see this. Oops, that's going to be awesome.
Whoa, that is cool.
Isn't that amazing? Check this out. This was a great Channel 9 video from Rachel on the team, who went and made a 10-minute quick start on getting started with VS Code. So basically, if you're a beginner doing VS Code, she walks through it on a Mac and basically gets you up and running in about 10 minutes. So for people who are just getting started, if you've never thought about doing Visual Studio Code, it's a good time to check it out. And there was some really high quality content. And also, that was nice to see that cool effect there. Cool. So Maria and Eilon, how are we doing there bandwidth-wise? Are we still sending it through a straw?
Pretty much.
Tin can with a piece of string.
Potato.
Yep, so I'll bring on potato basket.
It's did you lower the little slider bar, because it looks like you're a lot smoother now? No? Well, so that worked out nicely. Yeah, they're totally locked up. That's so sad. Can you hear us when we talk about you?
You guys sound great.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
So what happens is you look like you've been shot with a potato, and it's very like 320 versus 240. Potato. You never heard of potato resolution? No, that's a Reddit thing. Basically, it looks like you're 1 frame a second and really blocky. And I think it's not just us. Sorry. Well, hopefully let's do a couple of questions here and see if Eilon and Maria can answer these questions for us. Okay. So here's one. What is the planning for SignalR support in the CLR and thus Linux on the Mac? I'm pretty sure that we say this question every week, don't we? That it's post-release when we'll start thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's we had to make a few pages, or 2 of those. We decided justice along with.
Yeah, this is. It's so bad we can't hear you. Do me a favor and try turning off your camera and see if the audio will work without the camera on. Sorry, friends. Okay, let's see if we can maintain bandwidth to let you at least talk. Try it again.
How's this?
Well, that was 2 words. See if you can make it through the paragraph.
Okay, so we had to make some really tough decisions in order to ship the first version of ASP.NET Core, and so SignalR and web pages, a few other smaller features. SignalR is absolutely going to be one of the next things that we do after update for SignalR, but we don't have the resources on the team right now to ship that. But we have not forgotten about SignalR.
Okay.
We have been working on the C++ client for SignalR, but we haven't been working on the .NET server story for that.
Okay, cool. Caleb has a question here, and you actually replied. He was saying that he saw some system corruption where installing ASP.NET 5, the RC1, pre-ASP.NET Core timeframe, saw some corruption, and it looks like he's saying what is being done to correct that. I personally haven't seen it. I've set up 4 machines, haven't had that problem. Have you run into any issues like that, Eilon?
And yeah, I did see that post. So I mean, thanks for keeping us honest. That's always appreciated. That's my kind of neighboring team, the VS tooling team that does that. So I contacted Barry. So I'll see if I can find him as well in person to see if there's been any investigation on that. I don't have any specific information on that, but based on the threads, it does seem to be something that several people have run into. So it doesn't seem to be completely isolated incident, but.
Yep, I have not seen that, so it sounds like the point is that that's not a known thing that we've ever heard of.
No, yeah, so some people are reporting it, so it's a super annoying issue.
Well, it is annoying, yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't have any information on what that is.
Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Is there a way to override controllers authorize on an action level? There used to be an interface in MVC 5 days, but it's gone now. That's an interesting question.
Let's see. Oh, to override with, I guess is the question around override filters? Well,
controllers have this. They used to have an authorize, and at an action level, you could go and authorize them, but apparently that interface is gone now. When a question like that comes up, what do you want? What should we do with that? That's not really a GitHub issue. This gets into the whole forums versus Twitter versus GitHub question.
Right repo to ask on. So if you ask about question about static files on the MVC repo, we'll work to get it answered. It just won't be answered as quickly. So we do have a lot of repositories, but if you go to github.com/ASPNET, try to find the right repository and.
Sounds like ASP.NET/MVC would be the place today.
Mm-hmm.
For this in particular, absolutely. If you just ask the question there, I mean that's where the engineering team is looking at every single day, day and night. I don't know how we do that, but somehow that seems to happen.
Yeah.
And I would ask the question. And you can apply filters globally or per controller or per action as to the particular scenario there. To ask the question, maybe a little bit more details on GitHub, on the MVC repo.
Okay. And interestingly, I'm being told in one chat over here that there is an allow anonymous attribute. And Brian Erickson is saying he doesn't think that's right because he's using authorize on a controller and on just 1 or 2 action methods. So the community might want to have this conversation on Twitter. And actually, funny story, I've had about maybe a half dozen questions be sent to me over the course of the last week. And in almost every example, I was able to simply go to GitHub and look at the code. And it took a couple of minutes to search for the code. So I would definitely encourage people to remember, even though it's been said a million times before, it's open source. So often I'll just be sending people a link to the folder and say, look, it's in that C# file right there. So
absolutely.
Reminder.
There's always a question like, do I ask on Twitter? Do I ask on forums? Do I ask on Stack Overflow? Do I ask on the on the repo issue tracker? We do our best to look at all of those. However, the engineering team does always look at the MVC, or whichever repo issue tracker. One nice thing about posting things on there is that the engineering team specifically around that guarantees visibility within the engineering team. So if there's some scenario that maybe you got it to work, but maybe it wasn't obvious or it's a change from the previous version of MVC.
Right.
Go ahead and ask on there. Like we get tons of questions on there. We don't want it to be a discussion area, but
so this is where I disagree. I feel I'm looking here on Twitter, and Chad Levy is saying, and I agree, that Stack Overflow is the question. GitHub issues for bugs, Stack Overflow for questions, I think.
Yeah, I think that's generally true. I think there's sometimes discussions of, is this the right way to do this in ASP.NET Core MVC?
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Good point. So yeah, discussions where we're in the middle of design discussions, it's probably more appropriate over there.
Yeah. If it's I'm building an application and I just don't know how to do this particular thing, that's maybe more of a Stack.
Mm-hmm.
Points.
So, okay, that makes sense.
And again, Stack Overflow.
I just 20,000 there, so I'm happy with my fake internet points.
Stack Overflow specifically, like their rules are, they don't want discussion or what's the best way. They want like, this is the answer, it's definitive. So if it's kind of like, hey, what's the best way to implement this? That a lot of the time I think you'd do better, asking on a repo and an issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go through a couple of more questions here. Here's an interesting one from a really awesome name, Sigimantus Berzunius. What's your recommendation of having basic WebSocket functionality in ASP.NET Core application? Is there any way to do one-way communication, just straight WebSockets with no transport fallbacks? Can you do that in Middleware, or maybe open a channel in some way?
Yeah, so we don't have official WebSocket support in version 1. That along with SignalR were some of the things that we removed. That's not to say that there isn't any WebSocket support. It's just going to stay at the preview level at the time that we ship. So there is a WebSockets repo. There is WebSocket support in there, and so you can use that, but it's not necessarily going to be up to the quality level and support level of shipping fully supported when we ship. So yes, you can use it.
Your audio is so bad, we're almost going to have to call you all and put you on speakerphone. It's how bad it's getting, Eilon. Are you guys still there? And yeah, Maria, you did plug it into the wall. That's the part that's most amazing.
Give us. Try doing this.
I don't know. I mean, don't feel bad. It's just someone just chatted me here saying the network has been brutal today. Does that happen sometimes in Redmond? Eilon, you think someone's running a torrent they shouldn't be?
Yeah, it could be somebody's playing Xbox down the hall and they're like downloading some Forza game or something, just using up all the.
Is there any sense of people are always asking the same question every week? What are the dates? What are the dates for RC2? And when we have the dates, they're going to be where? On the roadmap on GitHub?
Roadmap on GitHub. That's Damien is in charge of updating that. And,
okay.
There are some really big things we want to make sure we have nailed down for RC2. At this point, we can't ship RC2 with what we have. There's too many big things going on right now, so we need to get those big things done and then give them just a little bit of bake time. So we're not going to ship RC2 next week. I can promise you that.
Okay. When you say big thing, what's an example? What's a simple example of a big thing? Is it like servicing? That's a big thing. Servicing means being able to update the thing after the fact.
Yeah. So there's several big things. A few off the top of my head is that I think certainly everybody on this call and who'll be watching this later knows about this change to .NET CLI.
Okay.
So DNX going away.
Right. And
.NET CLI, that's the way to go. So we're mostly done with that transition, but that just happened last week. We finished doing that. The next big one is changing to the new target framework monikers, TFMs. That's the little framework identifiers like NET 451. And we just checked in today. We changed everything to the new NET standard target framework monikers. So you'll see in the project.json files in all the repositories in github.com/ASPNet, you'll see NET standard show up with various versions, NET standard 1.4, NET standard 1.3, and so forth. That's the new kind of framework platform identifier. So, and then we also have to finish up the Visual Studio tooling. So we have some internal builds we're trying out to get Visual Studio working with .NET CLI. Make sure you can run unit tests, debug unit tests, compile projects, publish projects, deploy to Azure, all these things. And these are just all really big items. And there's more, of course, than just that alone. These are big, big, big items that can easily take half a dozen people to push one of these changes through.
Okay, now Maria, you said you were gonna try to change PCs, and I'm gonna try to answer a question while you do that.
Okay.
So here's one, and you can help me out here, John. Someone's saying, I'm really excited about the Docker post. Steve Lasker just put up a great post on Docker and the Docker tools. You pointed out that post, John. And saying, I'm trying to get a pull request merged into the ASP.NET Docker file since December. Interesting. So I'm going to actually go over and look at that and ASP.NET Docker file, and he's saying it feels difficult to send that through. So right now that's up at github.com/ASP.NET/ASP.Docker, and it's a couple months old, and I'm seeing that there are 2 pull requests here, and he's saying that he's trying to get a pull request merged since December. I don't. Oh, here, that's Alex Chesser, and there's his pull request. Your pull request, Alex, was, I think it looks like it's been it was merged in on the 4th of January, but it's still sitting there. What's the status here? Yeah, it did take a little bit while.
So
What do you think's going on there?
Well, I know I've talked to Ahmet Altbalkan, does that, so we can check with him.
Yep, I just did an update and checked. That does seem like a while. It's a small fix. He's just updating a couple of lines there, and it should not be a big deal. Yeah, this is the thing, though, right? There's a balance when you're doing open source between constantly pounding on people to make sure that it happens, and gently poking at them. But I think you've been more than patient, so we went and poked that person to see what's going on. What are you all up to over there, Maria?
Can you hear us?
We can hear you. Did you switch computers?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were using the MacBook, now we're using the Surface, so I don't know what that tells you.
I don't know what that means. Let's see if you're blurry or not. A little bit. You gonna do your remote control action there, Eilon?
I'm trying to.
See, this was all just one big anti-Mac advertisement, wasn't it? Sorry. Okay, let's see what we got here. Here's an interesting I don't know about this one. Sakib is saying, I have a question about the page rendering strategy. He says that my understanding of ASP.NET MVC is that you start rendering from he's saying from a leaf, like a bottom or a page or a control, and then you go up to the layout.
Yeah.
Why is it not rendered the other way around? Because then you could do more things like parallel rendering, where you render the layout and then have other things render in parallel.
Oh, sure, yeah. So yeah, there's a very particular reason for that, which is that the page is in charge of the initial view that you render is in charge of everything. So it gets to choose what layout to render. So how can you possibly render the layout unless the view has had a chance to say, go use that layout? And now you might say, well, okay, I already decided what layout page to use ahead of time. Okay, maybe you can do that. But then the next problem you have is, well, the layout page is often rendering view data that the content page decided. So if you look at the default, ASP.NET template that we've had for years now, the very top of a view page, you'll see in a at curly brace, you'll see view data sub, page title equals, about page or something like that. And then the layout page reads that view data back out in the title tag in the head of the HTML. So how can the layout page render the title that's set by the content page unless the page already ran?
Right,
And so
right.
that's why everything renders kind of, as far as layout pages go, everything renders inside out. That's not to say somebody couldn't build a view engine that does things, a different way, outside in, but you have to know more things in advance in order to do this. And it's really not impossible, and it's not a crazy idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. That's not the design we went with, but it's certainly fair. You could even try building a view engine. You could even reuse Razor if you wanted to do that. There's nothing about Razor that says anything about view pages. Razor is just a templating language that MVC happens to use to use. But anything to do with like layout pages, that's all MVC. That's not Razor. Razor doesn't know anything about layout pages.
So speaking of Razor, and there's a question here saying that publish with precompilation still leaves them as plain text files. Could one potentially precompile or embed Razor files so they're not laying around like text?
Yeah, there's a few things. Speaking again as to the hard cuts, precompilation of Razor is a feature that was cut from V1. We had some things going on in there, but it was really difficult to keep that up to date along with all the other features. So that's not currently planned for V1. However, people definitely have successfully done embedded Razor views. So you take the CSHTML files, embed them as resources into the DLL, and then you can use, we have a file provider abstraction. So we have this iFile provider, I think it's called interface, and we have one that's the embedded resources file provider, and you can say, hey, instead of using the file system to locate my Razor views, read them from embedded resources. So it's still going to compile them when the app is running, but you don't have loose CSHTML Razor files out on disk. You will just read them from the DLL directly because everything's abstracted out, the file system and everything.
And when we cut something like that, is it, there's a big long list and we have to make these tough decisions, we have to cut something. Are these big features? Are these features different, like kind of differently sized? Is this something where the community could go and spend a couple of days and do this? Or do these features tend to be larger or have, for lack of a better word, tendrils that have fingers into other parts of ASP.NET where I would not be able to do this?
I mean, the community is filled with a lot of incredibly smart people who are incredibly passionate and have contributed incredible amounts of code to the platform. We of course mentioned, Ben Adams. I don't think his skills are in doubt. So we've had many contributions in a lot of other areas as well. Hisham was mentioned several times already in this stand-up. He's done a lot of great contributions to localization and other areas. Mm-hmm. And as to whether the community could do it, the challenge we sometimes have in doing these things is it takes a lot of planning work and integration. So it's very rare that there's a feature that is 100% completely done and involves no scrutiny whatsoever from the rest of the team. When somebody sends a large pull request, we have to review it, we have to maintain it, we have to support it, we have to consider very carefully how it interacts with other features. So
what about doing it as in an extensible way, rather than there's one way of doing a feature and embedding it into the system, and there's another way which is like, oh, I could make a piece of middleware, and I could do it, or Maria could write it, and then release it as a plugin.
Yeah, so there are some features that by their nature kind of have to be done within the system, and many of which can be done outside. So, for example, one of the things that Hisham did, I think as a sample at least, was build an entity framework-based localization provider for resources. So that's something that we designed to be extensible. We have a built-in one, and then Hisham wrote a sample. I think it's in the entropy repo, github.com/ASPNET/entropy, and there's a great sample there about how to use entity framework and a database to store all your resource strings. So, that's one example of extensibility. As far as precompilation, I'm less certain that can be done completely outside of, changing MVC, but I'm not entirely sure. Something that we're sometimes more amenable to because it requires sometimes a little bit less design work is if you're trying to build a precompilation feature, but you can't do it as kind of an add-on NuGet package, and you're blocked because MVC doesn't expose this one thing that you need, talk to us about that. those are pretty easy to do. It's like, oh, make this thing public, or split this interface into 2 interfaces so we can just implement one and leave the other one default. We'll use dependency injection to get into the system. Those are fine. If we're talking about building the whole precompilation system into MVC, I can tell you right now there's very little chance of that making its way in at this point to V1, though it's definitely a feature we want to add after V1. Mm-hmm. We agree with the scenario. We just don't think we can build it, maintain it, test it, get it up to the quality level that needs to be, even with huge contributions from the community.
Does precompilation now views are cached once they're compiled, right? So this is mostly has an effect if you've got like a lot of views or really big views. Is that for startup? Is that?
Yeah. So there's usually 2 things that come up. One is exactly what you mentioned, which is why don't I compile everything on my compilation server and then the web server doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff. So that's a huge concern that people have. The other one is people don't like shipping their source code to a server. Like there's no need for this there. Like who's going to get if somebody has access to your server, you probably have much bigger problems than that. But it seems unnecessary. So like why should I even have that on there? Why even risk not just potentially an attack vector, which is maybe not the biggest concern there, but I don't want somebody even being tempted to update the Razor files on the server. You should go back to your source control, fix the bug in your rendering, fix the typo, fix the tag helper, whatever it is, test it, redeploy. That's what you should really do. So there's a few kind of different concerns there that come up with precompilation. I think those are probably the 2 biggest ones.
Okay. There's a couple of different questions here about this thing called docfx, which is at the .NET GitHub repo. Have you spent any time with that?
A long time ago, just helping them get set up. I know a little bit about it, but I can. Dan Roth, you want to talk to? But.
Dan Roth. Okay, well I'll ask Dan because there's questions about like Xproj is not supported as a project type, and as we move into this new world, questions come up like XML documentation compile options for project.json. And this is probably one of the many things that's on the list of things that need to be done after the thing is stable and moving forward, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so XML docs are definitely supported with project.json. You have to turn it on, just like with the CS proj. I don't think it's on by default. I think you have to turn it on. So there is in the project.json, I think there's a compilation options top level item, and then there's things like XML docs :true. If you look at any of the repositories in the ASP.NET org on GitHub, look at any of the project.json files under SRC, the source folder and the option is in there. So it's roughly what I said, if not exactly. And then that'll dump out the XML files for your docs. And then what you often want to do with that is you often want to disable the compiler warning that says you're missing some docs. Because I think once you turn on XML docs, it complains about every missing doc. And so it's like CS1591 or something is the warning. I hope that's not right because I hope I didn't actually remember that. I have this bad feeling that it is CS1591, but
I would be impressed if you pulled that off. If you just pulled that out of thin air.
Can I?
So while you're googling with Bing for that, Maria,
that is it.
Is it really? Oh wow. So
Maria, I anything.
You were running around all day, meeting with teams and introducing yourself around. And one of the things you told me on a text message earlier was that you went to a triage. What was that like?
It was actually an interesting process because it was interesting to see how the feedback comes back from everywhere. So every single time you submit something to maybe Visual Studio Feedback, you wonder where it goes. And now I know where it goes, right? It goes to the triage file. So that was actually pretty interesting to see that, your voices are heard.
Yeah.
That's nice to see.
You don't have to give any secrets away, but when you're in a room like that and they're talking about stuff, did you feel like there were any hard cuts? Like, wow, we really got to get this thing in, but no, we really can't do it. Like difficult and painful decisions?
Yeah, I saw a little of that where it's like, we need to get that done, but I can't think about it right now kind of situations, which is interesting. Considering the number of feedbacks, like, we need to get this done. You're like, nah, not really. So it's interesting to see where the priorities lie sometimes. Yeah.
And you commented to me that you had Mads. Did you have Mads Christensen with you there?
I had
And
that. Yeah.
was it true that he was whispering acronyms into your ear? Because people were used
Yes, it was. Because I didn't know acronyms and all these different names, and I was like, what is this, and where can I learn about this? It's a whole new world.
I still find the whole. You were telling me about VS15 and VS14 and VS13. They're not what we think they are. Like, which one's the one we just shipped, Eilon? 14?
Dev 14, update 1 is the most recent. Update 2 is being worked on.
But Visual Studio 2015 is internally referred to as Dev 14 or
yes.
14?
Yeah. So yeah, Maria and I were just having this discussion where the only one that was easy to remember as Dev 10 is VS 2010.
Yeah, that makes sense.
After that, the years and the versions diverged.
I think Office did the same thing. Their internal numbers didn't match up either. And it's always so funny that they don't, they never tell us the next number. Like I remember before Office 2016 came out, they were like Office.next or vNext because no one could imagine a world where it was just the year.
I was at a conference where I was not allowed to for the first half because I was over in England, and I was not allowed to for the first half of my talk refer to it as Visual Studio 2015. I had to call it or Visual Studio 14 Preview, whatever.
Oh, for crying out loud!
And so I had actually timed it, and I did my demos using Visual Studio 2015, but I went in the registry and all these places and changed it to say Visual Studio 14.
It's so silly. I mean, we know what's next. Oh, goodness me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
By the way, Scott, I checked. The warning is CS1591.
And I can get it right now.
Yeah. So.
You have been coding too long that you remember that. I feel like that about HTTP, RFCs. I used to remember some of those numbers. Or even worse is when you start remembering Microsoft knowledge base article numbers.
Oh no.
Or like 5 or 6.
So I'm gonna drive up there on Wednesday and hang out with you all. There's lots of good stuff going on. As I mentioned before, Maria is new on the team. I've got a team now, and also Martin Woodward from the .NET Foundation is on my team. And then we've got one more person that's going to be added as well. And Maria, where are you going after Seattle? Because you went from New York to Seattle, and now you're headed somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm going to Hong Kong.
When is that? When are you going?
I'm leaving on Sunday.
Oh.
And you're going to present at an event, right?
Huh?
I'm sorry, that's cutting out again. You're presenting at an event?
I am. I'm presenting at the Cloud Roadshow. I did it in New York, and now this is my first international location. Going international.
Very cool. Make sure that you see if there's a Chipotle or a Subway or something. Get a selfie. Because
is Chipotle open?
Yeah, they're sending out coupons. I won't get one or a free burrito or something.
I thought Chipotle closed down.
No, we probably don't want to announce the closure of Chipotle.
No, the ASPNET community stand-up is brought to you by Chipotle, right? No, I've got.
Have you tried that?
What's that?
Have you tried getting them to sponsor the event? Send everyone a coupon.
Scott, sponsored by Ferrari.
No, it's Subway.
Sponsored by Tesla. Come on.
There you go. Cool. All right, I gotta go get my kids, but feel free to tweet any and all of us except Eilon because he hates Twitter.
I'll fax him. Tweet me and I'll fax it to Eilon.
And you can.
That will check to me.
Yeah. So if you're in Hong Kong, Maria will be at the Cloud Roadshow. So check out wherever you look, wherever you find your Hong Kong-related event calendars. This is next week.
MS Events, and then you pick your country.
MS Events.
Yeah, I think I've been in DX for a while, so I know all the front-facing stuff.
Okay, so go and Google with Bing for MS Events and find out where that's at Hong Kong. And it looks like it's not MS Events, it's something like that, like MSDN Events. Events. Something.
msevents.microsoft.com.
There it is, msevents.microsoft.com. So you'll be there next week, so check that out. And we will be back for the community stand-up at a different time zone next week. So you can check that out as well, and maybe Damien will make it by as well, and you'll probably be flying back safely.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. And Eilon, do you feel that you can handle the dramatic zoom out as we leave?
It's just cue me when to start.
All right. Engage. Dramatic zoom out at the Microsoft. Da, da, da. Good job.